Hey everybody, welcome to the final week of class. The end is in sight, so just hang in there. Our final week is going to focus on contemporary sci-fi. With the stories this week, you're going to see some of the same themes that we have seen in previous weeks. But as you also know, modern sci-fi incorporates newer themes like artificial intelligence, especially where the technology takes over. So you're going to want to think Skynet from the Terminator movies or Cylons from Battlestar Galactica. There was a growing fear, and probably there still is, that technology would take over humanity, whether in the form of complete domination by our robot overlords, or just as something simple like automation replacing human workers. And again, we've covered some of that in past weeks as well. A really fun offshoot of the AI theme is cyberpunk. There were several authors actually who helped create cyberpunk, like Bruce Sterling and Michael Swanwick. But William Gibson is the one who really defined it as we know the genre today, mostly because of his novel Neuromancer. He also first created the term cyberspace, which is now so ubiquitous that pretty much everybody on the planet has heard of it, I think. For anybody who is not as familiar with cyberpunk, it basically reflects the high-tech, fast-paced world that a lot of us think about automatically when we think about the future. I know that when I think about the future, I just assume that I'd be living on the moon by now, and it's always accompanied for me by a vision of Earth that's one giant high-tech city like Coruscant in the Star Wars universe. So just imagine my disappointment, you guys. Some excellent sci-fi, cyberpunk, novels in addition to Neuromancer include Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick, which some of you may also know as the movie Blade Runner, Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson, The Wind-Up Girl by Paolo Bacigalupi, and Infomocracy by Malka Older. You should definitely read all of those because they're awesome. They are also listed in my recommended reading list in the course resources folder, along with a bunch of other books that I think are really good. So hopefully you will want to pick those up at some point. Somewhat related to cyberpunk, we also are seeing a lot of dystopian and post-apocalyptic novels cropping up in contemporary sci-fi. It makes sense because there are a lot of issues concerning people right now that focus on society today, from climate change to bioterrorism, catastrophic war. These are all things that people still think about. These kinds of novels reflect those growing fears and give authors and readers alike space to examine them, just like other novels do too. Some of the most famous dystopian novels are The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, 1984 by George Orwell, The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, and Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. Some novels that are post-apocalyptic are The Road by Cormac McCarthy, Bird Box by Josh Malerman, Dies the Fire by S.M. Stirling, and The Stand by Stephen King. So by now you probably can easily tell the difference between dystopian and post-apocalyptic stories. If you are still wondering about it though, an easy way to remember it is to think about dystopian as the opposite of the Federation from Star Trek. The Federation was supposed to be a perfect or utopian society. Everybody has enough food, shelter, everybody has work. There's no debt, not really any disease. They have whatever they need, basically. So dystopian societies can often appear to have the elements of an ideal society, so they might not have disease or poverty or whatever, but the government is usually some kind of totalitarian nightmare where people, or at least certain groups of people, are heavily monitored and controlled. Post-apocalypse can also overlap with dystopian stories, but they always have some kind of a major event that destroys humanity first, like a super lethal virus, nuclear war, asteroid impact, something like that. And then after that, you end up with not having enough food or water, toxic environments. That is what the apocalypse is. What rises after the apocalypse in those kinds of stories might be dystopian, but the primary factor is just some horrific event that annihilates humanity first. Personally, I tend to think of dystopian stories more as warnings and things to look for so that we can avoid that. And sometimes they give us some really cool heroes who fight against the system somehow. The thing that I like best about post-apocalyptic stories, on the other hand, is that they focus more on humanity itself as a whole, how we can rise to the occasion and overcome, just in general, terrible events. So it's not necessarily just about one hero or group of heroes. It also gives authors a really good way to play around with the human condition and explore various topics in new ways. So on that note, I want to say thank you all for being such awesome students over the past 5 weeks. We only have a couple days left of class, so please focus on your final assignments and finish up your class participation if you haven't already. If you want to, hit me up with some of your favorite stories that we read during the class or your favorite sci-fi book in general. I'm always hoping to discover new books, and I have no doubt that some of you have read a lot of things that I haven't. As always, too, please let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you in the last couple days.